The following is a list of Japanese photographers from its beginning in the 19th century to present time, including information on the history of the development of Japanese photography. 19th century photography. Importation of photography. In 1848, Edo era, a camera for daguerreotype was imported by a Dutch ship to Japan, Nagasaki. It is said that this was the first camera in Japan. During Edo era, the import and the export had been prohibited, sakoku, by the Edo government, edobakufu, except that only Dutch ships had been permitted to export and import various goods at Nagasaki port. Therefore, the first camera was introduced at Nagasaki. This camera was imported by Ueno Toshinojo, 1790–1851. And in 1849 passed to Shimizu Nariakira, 1809–1858, who later would become a feudal lord, daimyo, of Satsuma Domain, now Kagoshima-ken. In Satsuma Domain, detailed study with respect to photography had been done, but it took almost 10 years from the acquisition of the first camera to taking the first photograph. In 1857, Shimazu Nariakira's photograph was taken by Ichiki Shiro, 1828–1903, and Ujuku Hikomon, daguerreotype. This is said to be the first photograph taken by Japanese and still exist and can be seen at Shoko, Shuseikan, Kagoshima City, Japan. In 1854, Convention of Kanagawa, Nichibei Washinjoku, America-Japan Treaty of Amity and Friendship, was concluded between U.S. and Japan. Anglo-Japanese Friendship Treaty, Nichie Washinjoku, was concluded between Britain and Japan. And Treaty of Shimoda, Nichiro Washinjoku, was concluded between Russia and Japan. The treaties opened the Japanese ports of Shimoda, in Shizuoka Prefecture, Hakodate, in Hokkaido Prefecture, and Nagasaki to the trade. In 1858, Treaty of Amity and Commerce, United States, Japan, was concluded between U.S. and Japan and opened the port of Kanagawa. But soon, the port of Yokohama, which is close to Kanagawa, opened for the trade with foreign countries in exchange to the port of Kanagawa. The trade based on these treaties began in 1858 at Yokohama, Nagasaki and Hakodate. This is called Kaikoku, to open the nation for foreign countries and trades. In Japanese language, thanks to Kaikoku, more and more cameras and other photography-related equipment and materials had been imported to Japan. Further, some foreign photographers, such as Felix Bitu, came to Japan and took many photographs of Japan. In 1862, Ueno Hikoma, 1838–1904, opened his photo studio in Nagasaki, and Shimaka Renjo, 1823–1914, opened his photo studio in Noge, soon later included within Yokohama. In the same year, but independently, the open of these two photo studios for portraits indicated the new era of Japanese photography. Professional photographers in Meiji era. After the opening of Ueno Studio and Shimaka Studio, around the turning point between Edo era and Meiji era, 1868, several new photo studios were opened, such as that of Koichi Ukeda, 1844–1875. In 1865 in Osaka, and in 1866 moved to Yokohama, that of Yohei Hori, or Hori Masumi, 1826–1880. In 1865 in Kyoto, that of Kokichi Kizu, 1830–1895. In 1866 in Hakodate, that of Rihei Tomoshige, 1837–1922. In Yanagawa, Chikugo in 1866, and that of Yokoyama Matsusaburo, 1838 to 1884. Among these photographers, Shishinshi Ukeda Koichi is most famous for his photographs of Meiji Emperor in 1872 and 1873, which photographs have been called goshine, and were used as public portraits of Meiji Emperor. Shin means through, and a means photographic image or portrait, and go means honorific prefix for. In Meiji era, only very limited persons, such as prime ministers, could meet Meiji Emperor in person, and most Japanese people in Meiji era had no chance to see Meiji Emperor. But Meiji Emperor's image was necessary for him to govern Japan and Japanese nations. Therefore, Meiji government prepared and used for Emperor's governance and Meiji government's governance. As other photographers, Kakoku Shima, 1827 to 1870, and Yushima, 1823 to 1899, should be mentioned. They were a husband and a wife and began taking photography together around 1863 or 1864, and Yushima was called the first woman professional photographer. Further, around the 1860s and 1900, Yokohama Shashin, Yokohama Photo, photographs selling and distributing in Yokohama, was very popular. Yokohama Shashin was a photograph of Japanese scenery, Japanese people, especially Japanese women, and Japanese cultures, and a very widely used souvenir especially for foreign people. Among photographers for Yokohama Shashin, Felix Bitu and Kusakabe Kimbei, 1841 to 1934, were very famous. Because of Kaikoku, many foreign people came to Japan. Further, after Meiji Ishin, Meiji government was established in 1868. Many Japanese were able to travel within Japan without breaking laws and began to travel within Japan. Yokohama was a suitable place to visit both for foreign people and Japanese people, and Yokohama Shashin attracted such travelers very much. Two main characteristics of Yokohama Shashin were a well-decorated album-style photographs and hand-colored photographs. But towards the end of the 19th century, picture postcards, which were much cheaper than Yokohama Shashin, became very popular and were widely used in Japan. And many amateur photographers were emerging, who liked to take pictures by themselves and to buy expensive Yokohama Shashin. These were the major reasons for Yokohama Shashin to decline. In the 1880s, photographers in a new generation and new types began their activities. Reiji Esaki, 1845 to 1910, who took photographs of experimental torpedo explosion in Sumida River in 1883, and Kazuma Ogawa, 1860 to 1929, who not only took photographs but also was the managers of a printing factory, were particularly famous among them. In the 1860s and 1870s, many photographs of Hokkaido were taken, which photographs are called Hokkaido Kaitaku Shashin, photographs of developments in Hokkaido. In the 1860s and 1870s, Hokkaido was under the development by the Japanese government. The government in Tokyo needed detailed reports of the development in writing, and they thought reports with photographs should be better, and the government requested some photographers to take photographs of the development in Hokkaido. Such photographers included Tamoto Kenzo, 1832 to 1912, Kokichi Ida, 1846 to 1911, Raymond von Stillfried Ratanich, 1839 to 1911, Seiichi Takebayashi, 1842 to 1908, and Sakuma Hanzo, 1844 to 1897. Emerging amateur photographers. Around the middle of the 1880s, photographers began to use gelatin dry plates very widely. Before the spread of gelatin dry plates, The wet collodion process was ordinary process for photography in Japan, and to use this process was very difficult in technical points, and also it costs a considerable sum of money. It means almost no amateur photographers can exist without gelatin dry plates. Two famous examples of earliest amateur photographers in Japan were as follows. Kameko Ryuki, 1861–1896, who was a count and studied aesthetics in England and Germany, took photographs of the Sino-Japanese War. In 1895, Kojima Saibai, 1866–1924, took many photographs in the 1890s, such as a life-size portrait of Manzaburo Umeoka, no actor, and a big-size photograph of Mount Fuji. Widespread of gelatin dry plates and small-sized cameras led to the era of prominent amateur photographers in the 20th century in Japan. Other major photographers: Hasegawa Kichijiro, Florida, 1870s, who is included in The History of Japanese Photography. About this source, please refer to further reading below. The first half of the 20th century. Era of Geijutsu Shashin. Era of pictorialism. In 1904, Yuzuzu Sha was founded by Tetsusuke Akiyama, Seiichi Kato and other photographers. In 1904, Nanawa Photography Club, Nanawa Shashin Club, was founded in Osaka. In 1907, Tokyo Photographic Research Society, Tokyo Shashin Kenkyukai, was founded in Tokyo. In 1912, AIYU Photography Club, AIYU Shashin Club, was founded in Nagoya and Chotaro Hidaka. 1883–1926. Itaro Masuko, 1882–1968, and Matsutaro Ohashi, 1891–1941, actively made photographs as a member of this club. In 1912, Yonenkai was founded by Yasuzo Nojima, 1889–1964, and other three photographers. In 1921, Shashin Geijutsu Sha was founded, and the first issue of Shashin Geijutsu, Photographic Art, was published by Shinzo Fukuhara, 1883–1948. Rosso Fukuhara, 1892–1946, and other photographers. In 1922, Japan Photographic Art Association, Nippon Koga Geijutsu Kyokai, was founded by Hakuyo Fusukami, 1889–1960, and the first issue of Hakuyo was published. In 1922, the first issue of Geijutsu Shashin Kenkyu, Art Photography Studies, was published. In 1922, a photographic monograph Paris et la Seine, Paris and the Seine, Paris to Seine, and in 1923, another monograph, Light and its Euphony, Hikari to Seine Kiricho, were published by Shinzo Fukuhara. In the early 1920s, VES Tan School was formed by Masataka Takayama, 1895–1981, Makihiko Yamamoto, 1893–1985, and Jun Watanabe. Era of Shinko Shashin. Era of new photography. In the early and mid-1920s, there appeared some photographic tendencies called constructivism school within Nippon Koga Geijutsu Kyokai members. For example, in Hakuyo Fuchikami's works. In 1923, the first issue of Asahi Graph, the Asahi Graph Weekly, was published. In 1923, there occurred Kanto Great Earthquake, Kanto Daishinzai. In 1924, the first issue of Photo Times was published. In 1926, the first issue of Asahi Camera was published. In 1927, Iwata Nakayama returned to Japan after several years in the U.S. and Europe. In 1930, Tampei Photography Club, Tampei Shashan Club, February 1930 c. 1941, Osaka, was founded by Bizen Ueda and other photographers and later Nakaji Yasui. 1903 to 1942. Entered this club. In 1930, Ashia Camera Club was founded by Iwata Nakayama. 1895 to 1949. Kambei Hanaya. 1903 to 1991. And other photographers. In 1930, New Photography Research Society, Shinko Shashin Kenkyukai, was founded and the first issue of Shinko Shashin Kenkyu, New Photography Studies, was published by Senichi Kimura. 1931, German International Traveling Photography Exhibition, Duitsu Kokusai Shashin 10. This was a traveling exhibition of film and photo in Stuttgart, Germany in 1929. Was held in Tokyo, April, and Osaka, July. In 1932, the first issue of Koga Photography was published by Yasuzo Nojima, Iwata Nakayama and Ihei Kimura, or Ihei Kimura. In 1932, Manchuria Photographic Artists Association, Manchu Shashin Sakakyokai, was founded, and in 1933, Manchu Graph, Pictorial Manchuria, was published by Hakuyo Fusukami. In 1932, a photographic monograph, Camera, IX Iron, Construction, Camera, MiX Tetsu Kosei, Times, was published by Masao Horino. 1907 to 1999. In 1933, a photographic monograph, Early Summer Nerves, Shoka Shinki, was published by Kiyoshi Koishi. 1908 to 1957. In 1936, a photographic monograph, The Reason for Sleep, Nemuri no Ryu, was published by AQ. In 1937, Avant-Garde Image Group, Avant-Garde Zoe Shudan, was founded by Gingo Hanawa. 1894 to 1957. Terashichi Hirai, 1900 to 1970. And other photographers. In 1938, Avant-Garde Photography Association, Zenei Shashin Kyokai, was founded by Shuzo Takiguchi and some photographers. In 1939, Nagoya Photo Avant-Garde was founded by Minoru Sakata. 1902 to 1974. Kansuke Yamamoto, 1914 to 1987. And other photographers. In 1939, Societe IRF was founded in Fukuoka by Wataru Takahashi. 1900 to 1944. And other photographers. In 1940, a photographic monograph, Mesembryanthemum, Mesemzoku, was published by Yoshioshi Mojato. In 1940, a photographic monograph, Light, Hikari, was published by Tampei Shashin Club. In 1942, Nakaji Yasui died. Era of Hodo Shashin. Era of photojournalism. In 1932, Yonosuke Natri returned to Japan from Germany as a correspondent photographer of Ullstein Verlag. In 1933, Nippon Kobo, Japan Studio, was founded by Yonosuke Natari. But in 1934 most of main members other than Natari has left Nippon Kobo and founded Chuo Kobo, Metropolitan Studio. Then Natari reorganized Nippon Kobo. In 1934, the first issue of Nippon was published by Nippon Kobo. In 1938, the first issue of Shashin Shuho, Photo Weekly, was published. In 1941, Toosha, Far East Company, was founded. In 1942, the first issue of Front was published by Toosha. The second half of the 20th century. History. After World War II, there appeared the era of Hodo Shashin. Era of photojournalism. Again, mainly led by Ken Domon. 1909 to 1990. Ihei Kimura. Ihei Kimura. 1901 to 1974. And Yonosuke Natori. 1910 to 1962. All of three were very active even during World War II. Avant-garde photography, including surrealism and pictorialism photography, had almost disappeared behind photojournalism after World War II because photography other than photojournalism which supported Japanese government and Japanese military powers was completely oppressed by the Japanese government during World War II. It took several years before avant-garde photography came back to the stage of the history of Japanese photography. 21st century history. Major photographers: Shomei Tamatsu, Naoya Takayama, Hiroshi Sugimoto, Shinzo Maeda. Further reading: The History of Japanese Photography. The Museum of Fine Arts. Houston: Yale University Press. 2003. ISBN 0300099258. Modern Photography in Japan 1915 to 1940. 2001. ISBN 0933286740.